quickly. So to quickly introduce our speakers today, I have Andy Leon from KiwiRail. He's the Program Director, Digital Engineering, and Derek Jennings. He's the Digital Engineering Lead at KiwiRail. They will be talking about putting collaboration at the center of New Zealand's rail network upgrades. For those of you who are not familiar with KiwiRail, just a brief intro. KiwiRail is the largest rail transport operator in New Zealand. Has a very large portfolio of projects. It is responsible for rail operations and operates inter-island ferries as well. Andy and Derek's prime responsibility is to develop and deliver transformational change through digital engineering across KiwiRail's capital portfolio of projects. And today, they'll be telling us how Revizto has helped them with this journey. I will go through our agenda quickly. So initially, we'll have a project and portfolio overview from Andy and Derek, and they'll tell us about the history and take us through some of the challenges they're having. They'll be telling us more about KiwiRail's digital framework. And then we'll be talking about Revizto, why Revizto for the job, and how it is helping them right now and in the future. They'll be taking us then to a live demo on one of their projects, a very exciting project, I must say. And towards the end, we'll take some questions, and I'm sure we'll try to cover as much as possible during this webinar. So without further ado, I will now pass the mic to Andy and Derek and ask them to take us through their journey.
Cool. Thanks very much, Abel. Yeah, so it's Andy here. I am just do the obligatory awkward transfer from one slideshow to another, and maybe caveat this that I guess there's probably a number of you sitting working from home at the moment in various degrees of lockdowns and what have you. So it wouldn't be an online presentation unless a toddler or a small child interrupts. So if you just want to place your bets in the chat, Derek's got a toddler that's always keen to help, and I've got a 4-year-old that's pretty intent on chipping in her 2 cents on why we use Revizto. So you can look forward to that later in the proceedings. So yeah, Chawa mentioned a little bit about KiwiRail. We New Zealand's rail operator, I guess. We have about just over 4,000 kilometers of track, and there's a few different parts of our business. So we have a freight business that includes moving freight right through the North and South Islands, and also that connection between the two through our inter-islander business, so the 3 ferries that we operate across the Cook Strait. We're responsible for the infrastructure that those services run on, and we have a pretty large property holding as well. And the other part of the business, which is where Derek and myself sit, is our capital projects team. So in the last few years, there's been a huge influx of funding for KiwiRail to sort of reinvigorate the rail network. Government's laid out the ambitious challenge for us. So we have a portfolio of around $5.7 billion worth of capital works, and that includes renewals and sort of big bang maintenance activities to some parts of the network. It includes some new construction in other places. We're also procuring new ferries. We're buying new rolling stock. So it's quite a diverse portfolio. And it isn't just sort of mainline and rail. We also have a number of vertical build projects. So we have from fit outs for things like train control facilities, new offices for ourselves. We've got depots and the like. So it is quite a varied, I guess, a variety of disciplines, I should say. So I guess coming to the digital engineering piece, as part of the early funding that we got with our Wellington Metro upgrade, we started running pilot projects to test the use of digital engineering and BIM, see what it could do for us. We were looking for ways to reduce construction risk and unlock some, I guess, some of the smart things that we'd seen others doing internationally. We recognized that we were scaling up to deliver a portfolio of work that was larger than anything we'd done in the past, and that needed some slightly different ways of thinking to do that. So we started piloting digital engineering and BIM. We had a few projects that were part of that early pilot, and off the back of those, we developed a way of working, and we got some really good experience from just jumping in and having a go. And that's led us to form a centralized digital engineering team. So we act as a support function to the capital projects team primarily, and we're there to sit across all of the projects that are in our portfolio and look at ways that technology and, I guess, enabling technologies and digital tools can help make things a bit more efficient. We'll touch on some of the objectives, and then we can have a little bit of a look at the way of working. But quite early on in our pilot projects, the four sort of areas that you see on the screen, those are the things that we recognized we kind of needed to tackle. And we've reviewed these as we've gone on and really realized that they still stand true in terms of getting to the heart of what we're here to do. So we recognize that not unusually, we're a business that had a lot of information and data, but it was not necessarily all structured in a useful way, or maybe it was siloed in parts. It may have had structures, but the structures didn't talk across the silos. It's not abundantly clear, where do you go to get the information? So we wanted to tackle that. And initially we thought our common data environment was going to be the be all and end all to solve that problem, but we learned a lesson in that space, which we'll come back to. We also recognized that in terms of bang for buck, why would we go down the route of using digital engineering? The easy win is to reduce those construction risks. If you imagine doing work in the rail corridor, you have to disrupt services. And when you're disrupting services, you really can't afford to open up the ground and suddenly find something you weren't expecting. So we knew that if we could put a little bit more emphasis on building it in the digital world first, and then getting out to site, then we had a better chance of avoiding some of the costly problems that do tend to arise in construction. We also recognized that our as-built-in process had some opportunities for improvement. I don't think we're unique in that one, unfortunately. We'll think that when you get towards the end of a project, everyone's got a bit of project fatigue kicking in, and I don't know that anybody ever won any awards for best as-built ever. So this is something we thought we could probably tackle and maybe look at slightly differently. And the last piece is really an outcome of those first three. It is using the things above to just be a bit more efficient in what we do. The vision statement that was on the screen before as well. We knew we were jumping in and we were going to just test the waters and have a go. But we also recognize as an asset owner, our buying power can influence the way that our supply chain directs their efforts. And there's been some amazing things come out of our supply chain in the digital engineering space. But that can only ever go so far. It does take clients to step in and demand it and buy it to make that change happen. And that's something we do really take seriously. So a lot of what we've done and the way we've directed our efforts is to try and help that industry transformation. Recognize that sharing with other asset owners is a really good way to collaborate for the sake of consistency. We don't want to be asking our supply chain to do something differently to other asset owners. Ideally, we want to all be asking for the same sort of thing. It will make all our lives a bit easier. So that's something that is right at the center of everything we've delivered so far. So through the pilots, we started to develop a framework. We've just released version 4. It's on our website. And look back to the first edition of it versus the one we've got now. It's quite a different document. It really is quite tightly aligned with ISO 19650. That's I guess the international standard that we've chosen to direct our efforts towards. And yeah, all the files on there can be downloaded, and the information requirements, both the project and exchange ones, are templates that they're available for others to use. Should you like it. We also have a Revizto guidance note, which we've just finished, and we'll push up to the website in the next, hopefully, 24 hours. So that explains a little bit more about how we want to use the tool and how we sort of get some consistency in the way we make it happen. Cool. Okay. So slide here. I guess the one of the big things we see as an opportunity when it comes to the design phase of a lot of these projects is around that was at the top, contextual excellence. I'm sure there's some people on the webinar that have already heard me say this, but it's not uncommon for us to take a look at our codes and standards, or to take the building code. What we really got there is a list of do minimums, and we quite often articulate what we want in a case of the do minimum. And so that's what we get. We don't really discern between somebody who's done the minimum and someone who's gone well above and beyond it. But good isn't just a pass or fail. There's good and there's great. And I think one of the things that can be a real challenge for us is how do we understand, once you've met the minimum requirements, what's better than just doing that? So the example I give is, come home from school, or would have if we weren't in lockdown, and the kids will go in the front door and they'll dump their bags and jackets and shoes all in the middle of the hallway, which I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear. And obviously my wife and I will politely ask them to put their crap away in their room, and they'll sort of begrudgingly drag it off down the hallway. And a few moments later you hear a thud, and it'll be our 4-year-old or the dog's tripped over and face planted because there's a large pile of jackets and bags and shoes and things lying just down the other end of the hallway. And so when challenging us, the 8 and 10-year-olds, why their crap is still lying around in the hallway, it's great when they point out that it's actually just inside the door. So technically it is inside their room, which is what we asked them to do. They've met the minimum requirements, but I'd say it's far from contextually excellent. Okay, you did what I said, but that wasn't really what I meant, and it's a long way from looking good. So for us, Revizto is one of the tools that we can really use to bring that contextual excellence into the design phase, federating lots of different types of data together. And yep, we've tried to use things like Navisworks for that previously, but it's unlocking it in a way that's really simple and easy for everybody in the project to use, so that it isn't just the technical people that are used to authoring this, that are authoring the information, that are able to get at it and access it and consume it. It's everybody on the project, and they can see what it looks like next to everything else that's happening. And that contextual excellence, it really, what's the expression the other day, was daylight being the best sanitizer. You once you see these issues out in the open, people become very aware of them, and they tend to get cleaned up, and they get cleaned up in advance of us getting out to site and discovering those issues. I think that's probably one of the big lessons we learned from our pilot project, our first pilot project, which is actually on the screen at the minute, is we didn't have Revizto on that project, and we were using Navisworks to federate everything and work through the coordination and clash piece. But what we weren't doing a very good job of was actually closing issues out as they arose. We just didn't have enough rigor around it. So we were still having instances of getting to site, finding a clash, checking the model, and the clashes in the model. So it was great that the model represented what was happening on site. It was just a bit of a shame that maybe we had left those clashes baked in. And so on our second pilot project, we decided that was something we wanted to address. We wanted a tool that was going to give us a way to raise those issues, but actually track them, close them out, and make sure that we were resolving things before we got to site. I mentioned our CDE. We kind of thought that everything will be in there and everybody will go there to consume it. But actually what's now transpired is Revizto's become the place where people come together to collaborate. the information does live in our common data environment, but ultimately it's a fancy document management system. And it's the power of having all of this information in one place and creating that contextual excellence that everybody in the project team can go to, that really is adding value to our projects.
Awesome, Andy. I had a question, two questions around the same things that you already mentioned. So, but I was going to ask about your strategy in terms of implementing and using Revizto, and I think you mentioned it briefly, but from our previous presentation, I heard you saying before that you provide licenses to everyone on the project. You pay for these licenses as well. Do you regard this as a cost, and why is it important for you that everyone has a license?
Yeah, that's it is. So that's the approach we take. We recognize that a lot of the issues, risks, and problems that kick up on our projects, whether we've transferred some portion of risk to the supply chain because they've been contracted in to hold that and address it, they're still our projects. And when problems come up, it still affects us. It's our network, it's the disruption to our customers that we're trying to avoid. So it's in our best interest to iron those things out. And when we look at the cost of buying a license and supplying it to anybody that's involved, what we want is the teams to coordinate with each other. We want people to collaborate. We want them to do what's best for the project. And we don't want to leave, there's enough barriers to changing the way people work without adding an extra commercial one around the cost of a license. So the approach we've taken is we'll buy the licenses and we'll provide them to anybody on our projects, because we need you to be working together on this. That's going to save us a lot of money in the long term compared with the cost of paying for that license. And same with training as well. We can provide that training to anybody regardless of the organization. I think it comes back to our vision statement of pioneering our journey to transform the industry. So if we can provide a little bit of insight into this way of working and a little bit of support to the supply chain, that's going to be good for us, and it's going to be good for the industry as a whole.
I think this is perfect. My next question was about how long did it take you to implement this strategy or way of working? Because as I know that you guys started initially with a couple of licenses, then you kind of ramped up very quickly. How did you implement this? Like, what was the strategy?
Yes, we did. So we had, initially on our first project, there were only a couple of people in KiwiRail using Revizto, and it was licensed through one of our consultants. And when we bought our own licenses, I think we bought 20. But what we found was, as soon as we had a few seats and took up one project team and put all of the information in there and gave them the access, it was just a real exponential growth with the uptake from users. And they were finding, I think, uses that maybe we hadn't really considered. We knew that if we put them there, good things would happen. Derek's probably got some pretty good examples of that kind of uptake.
I think it just really spoke to the scale of collaboration we needed. And so very quickly did it become very apparent that there are a number of stakeholders that typically don't get access to this type of information. And by having them in that environment, it just took away so many complexities that often are not resolved and end up in issues on site or something like that. So yeah.
And we bought 20 licenses and ran out and decided to buy 20 more. And as soon as we were buying them, project teams were jumping on board and wanting to use it. So it wasn't a particularly hard sell. I think, like Derek said, we just gave them access to information that they hadn't been able to use before and demand.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of dynamics to that too. We were asking our supply chain to work in a consistent way across our portfolio. So we didn't want licensing to be a barrier for that adoption, but also what was really amazing was how everyone was just really keen to jump in and and be in that environment where everyone had access. So that kind of snowballed and meant there are a lot more people than we probably initially thought would need licenses.
So I think we sit at 230 now, something like that. And we have a few more projects about to kick off, so I've no doubt that's going to change again. But yeah, I think getting the information to people's fingertips, I think everyone's experienced not having the information you need to do the job, or having to run around to corral it all into the one space. Yeah, we're kind of, I think, I see our job as just empowering our project teams to get on with it and do what they're good at, and take away some of those silly pain points that probably shouldn't exist, but unfortunately they do.
Excellent. A follow-up question on the use of Revizto. You mentioned that everyone is now accessing information that they didn't have access to before. Does this extend to the field team as well? Do you use Revizto on site, on iPads and so on?
Yeah, Derek, do you want to, I guess, the Werribee project's probably a pretty good place where the uptake was strong.
So the Werribee Park project here in Auckland, we've set up a couple of the different site teams with iPads, and they're coordinating some pretty gnarly and complex infrastructure in a live environment in some really tight timeframes. So they've really embraced being able to take those iPads onto site, have that contextual context and relevance, and tag issues with photos of what they're looking at on site and what's in Revizto. So yeah, it's been really, really beneficial for them.
We also have a lot of our work has to take place at night, just because of the kind of disruption. So to go from a process which was maybe go out to site, do some potholing, take some photographs, get home and sleep, and then wake up and then write it up and then send it on to somebody. And it can be a couple of days before that information hits the design team that need to coordinate it. With Revizto, the team can just take the iPad out into the field, take the photo, tag it, and when the design team come in the morning, it's sitting there ready for them. So it just speeds that process up considerably.
That's awesome. I think I will have more questions toward the end, but I'm very excited to see the demo that you told us about when we were preparing. So if you could take us through the demo, maybe Derek will do it, and then we'll see if people will ask some more questions. Then I'm sure they will.
Yep, sure. I'm sure. It's fair to say we drew straws and Derek drew the short straw, having to do a live demonstration, which I don't envy you.
Love live demonstrations. My hands aren't sweating at all. Right, let's do this. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So this is the project I mentioned earlier, Werribee Park, and the things I'm going to show in the demo aren't necessarily super complex, but they really show the value of having a collaboration environment does for our business and for our projects. And one thing I wanted to say was that Werribee Park was one of the first projects to kind of adopt this at scale, and so fully not taking the credit for this, because that team has done really awesome and showing initiative and taking this tool and really embracing the value it can add to the project. So what you can see in front of you is Westfield Yard, and what we've got in here is monthly drone point cloud footage. So of course this is a live environment, and we have to do construction when we can get access to the network. So the main contractor Downer, what they do is they take a monthly drone scan and we feed that back into Revizto. And for us, that's really valuable because it just gives us that context. So what I'm going to do is just hide that and hide the ground model. And then you can start to see all of the design information and what's going on. But when you see it without the point clouds, you see there's a lot to do, but you probably just don't have that context of how it fits in to what we have on site and what we have to coordinate with. So I think for us, being able to bring that live environment back into this environment and everyone having access to it is just really powerful. It just really enables us to have an understanding of what we're building, what we're designing, how it has to work in what we're doing. And so from that, we've really embraced search sets. There is a lot of models. There's probably over about 100 different models on this project. The project's broken down into 5 kind of sub-projects. And yeah, so by using the search sets, we're really able to filter that information and just make it accessible to a wider audience. And just easily turn things on and off. And so, for example, I've just isolated in transparency the OLE, so that's our overhead line structures. So you're easily able to see, you know, where they are in context of the site. Cool. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to show you. Sec. We're just going to head down. Viewpoints are really powerful for us because we do horizontal projects. You know, our sites are often kilometers long. And so scrolling, it's not kind of like a building where you can scroll up a couple, maybe 12-story building, scroll up a few levels. It can take a while to get one from one end to the other. So again, really simple use, but really powerful for us. So I'm going to go down to Wiri Junction. And that's going to load up. Cool. So this is Wiri Junction, and this is one of the busiest junctions in New Zealand. We've got an EMU depot and a freight area, and there's a lot going on. A lot of trains have to get through this area with some tight tolerances. One thing we've started doing is we do monthly as-built models. So every month we get a model from the contractor of what's being built, and this gets fed back into the Revizto environment. And that enables us to continue to coordinate with what's being built. So to just give you a bit of context of that, just going to hide the point clouds. So we've got a whole bunch of models. I'm just going to show you. So this is the as-built model. So this is what's being built to date at the site. And you can see that it's pretty powerful once we turn back on the design models. That we're able to coordinate with that. So, you know, for example, we've got these foundations here. The foundations have been built, but the overhead structure hasn't yet. And we're able to feed that back in and continue to coordinate in a way that's efficient and that we have never done before. So yeah, quite powerful. And then the final thing I just wanted to show you that's quite unique to Rail. So I'm just going to turn everything back on. You'll see these big box things covering over the rail corridor and wonder what the hell they are. This was a really good initiative by our track designer. And so these are structural static gauge clearances. And if there's anyone on the call who wants to correct me because I don't quite get it right, please do from our team. But essentially, these are the clearances for trains. And like I said before, we've got some really tight tolerances. Again, we use the search sets, but what it enables us to do is just get that next level rigor around coordination. So we've got 3 different clearances here, so you can see the different things. I'm just going to hide a couple of them so it doesn't look so busy, but some of this is existing infrastructure that we have to get rid of where we're putting new tracks, but also it gives us confidence that things we're building are going to be fine. So yeah, it's enabled our team to coordinate all in the one place, bring in a whole bunch of models that you know, we have some pretty bespoke softwares that our teams use, bring that all into the one place, everyone be looking at the same stuff and coordinate in a way that we've never been able to before. So for us, collaboration environments just really unlock a lot in that space.
It's fair to say with the project teams as well, they like Derek mentioned, the structure gauges that we're looking at now. Once we put this in the hands of the smart people in the project teams, they tend to come up with other crafty ways to use it. So it is really useful. If you ever tried to have a look at assets out on the field and figure out what's happening with the structural gauge, it's just an impossible task. So to be able to stand there with Revizto on an iPad and have that discussion in a useful, meaningful way is really powerful. We also used putting in things like sea level rises and changes. We've put those into our ferry terminal design projects to be able to get an impression for the varying scenarios we might have to contend with in that environment. So once you unlock the data, put it all in one place and let people have at it, it's a great bed for innovation to happen. And that's a huge benefit to the project.
This is amazing, Derek. Hi, I have a question from Ian McKinnon. He's asking, in what format is the as-built model, cloud or component? And then he said kinetic envelopes.
So
you go, Andy.
I was going to say, okay, sorry, I thought you said the kinetic envelopes. The as-built models come in a range of different types. I mean, what we often so we look for native file formats and often take a federated model as well. We quite comfortably take LAS files and point clouds and things, the drone imagery. I'm not sure what that's coming through on, Derek.
Yes, so we've got LAS, RCS, but the meshes are OBJs.
Yep. And I think we're pretty happy to work with whatever native file formats we can get our hands on. Yes, we generally say if it's something curly, we might look for an exchange format as well. So we might be looking for an IFC or something along those lines, or DGNs or DWGs. It kind of just depends on the specifics. But we have a lot of, have a range of Autodesk and Bentley products being used to author things. So we've got to be able to cope with quite a few different types of authoring softwares. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Another question from Gary Page. He's asking where is the project data hosted, cloud or on-prem? If cloud, what data provider?
It's all cloud. So we don't have any on-prem. Well, we have on-prem stuff for our corporate tenancies, but our projects tenancies are all on cloud. We use Revizto, I guess, provide cloud storage through AWS, I think. Our common data environment, which is where all the native files and shared and published dates are held, that actually sits on Microsoft Azure. It uses blob storage for a lot of those kind of files, and then it sits in SharePoint. Some things sit in SharePoint, others sit in blob storage.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I do have a question from Anonymous. How long did it take you to evaluate Revizto in the first place before the subscription?
When did we?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. Good question, Anonymous.
So we used it as part of the BIM pilot projects down in Wellington. It was probably the second project, cab off the rank, that we were testing new ways of working in BIM workflows, and Revizto was tested in that project. And then I think once the digital engineering team was established in KiwiRail and we started to really scale up across our portfolio, it was apparent that collaboration environments was going to be a critical part of that.
There was a couple of key things as well in the early stages when we first came across Revizto that was a big plus for us. So the ability to output executable files, that was huge, because it was suddenly an easy answer as to, well, we can take all the drawings of all the models and have them in an archive state, but we don't have to worry about software later on. We can just open an executable file. We also knew that that was a way for us to take when we're moving into procurement for physical works, we can package up all of the design in one place, along with any issues that we know have to be resolved in construction, but we haven't quite figured out the answers to tie a bow around it, output it with the tender as an executable file. And we're really sharing with the supply chain everything we know. We're not trying to hide behind any green curtains there or anything. We're just saying, this is our project. This is everything we know. And we want someone that's going to come and join us to help deliver it. Doesn't serve us well to keep secrets from the supply chain. So having that executables was massive for us. Yeah, and I think what we found is there was a few key things like that we made the decision on scaling up. And as we've scaled up, we've unlocked other things. So the other area that we're really keen on is the ability to add custom fields to elements sitting in the model space. We can kind of say to everybody, hey, put your models in here, and now we can go to site with it and we can add an attribute, and that could be who installed it or what date was it done. Some of those other metadata fields we have as asset information requirements, or at least we're providing a tool that can populate that data against an element, and we can export it as a CSV file or an IFC. So we still have a bit of work to do on those workflows in terms of getting as-builts automated and into our asset management systems, but kind of see some of those little pieces that Revizto can do as being a good part of part of that puzzle.
Awesome.
I see Christian's question on the clearance envelope.
Yeah.
It's so the structure gauge we have, no, it's not dynamic. It doesn't take effects. It doesn't take into account the cant and throw effects on curves. What it is there's three sort of fixed structure gauges, and they should be quite a bit wider than our actual kinematic envelope. But they're more around, you can put, I would say, like we've got 2.75 for the face of traction poles is the offset that we look for. But in certain circumstances, you can go down to, let's say, 2.3 meters for very isolated obstructions. And so it's an easy check of those things. Yes, still got a way to go before we can get those dynamic envelopes in.
And that's where you can see the difference in the different clearance options. So
got a few more questions, and we still have minutes. So we'll try to see what we can. So Kevin, first we have, Nathan, are there any graphical assets specified for the model elements? If yes, what are they and how do you audit it? That was one.
Say again.
Are there any graphical assets specified for the model elements?
Okay. I'm assuming you meaning like, do you mean like our standards and how do we want the graphical elements to be modeled? What's our, I wouldn't say we have a particularly strong set of requirements in how we want geometry provided to us at this point. So one of the things we are working on, and you touched on it in the introduction, is it is more than just, what we're doing is more than just delivering for the projects. It is opportunities to transform the way our business works. And so we have a project as part of that, which is around model elements and libraries. We want to get to a point through these projects where we take the good examples and go, actually, that is what our assets should look like. And we're going to use that as our model library from now on, so we can supply that out. So at the minute, no, we're not super prescriptive on it. We have some requirements around the information we want attributed to it and some of the kind of geometric things that we want to know. But I wouldn't say we're super clear or like super mature in that that particular area. But all the shining examples will be viciously plagiarized and used to form a sort of virtual asset database.
I guess we're in the place where we're genuinely recognizing, that the digital asset is something that we have to produce along with the physical asset that we hand over to the business and project. And so we're definitely on a bit of a journey there of what that looks like.
Cool. I think we're around time, but we'll just answer a couple more questions if that's okay. There are a few there. What level of attribute tagging is involved in the as-built, and how do you plan to use the models for asset management at all? That question came from Kevin Golding.
So on our pilots, we had like 10 fields, I think, against most attributes. It was very, very simple. And we took the approach that, well, at the minute, we maybe capture a couple of things and we can do better. So we'll do a little bit better. During the time from that pilot to now, our asset management team have been working really hard on our data dictionary. So we've got a really comprehensive look at all the different fields, the sort of critical must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and that asset schema is available both for our horizontal and vertical assets. It is quite comprehensive. Yeah, and in the ideal world, all of those things will be populated. What we also know is there's a lot of fields that get populated that we don't actually use for asset management, but we will use if there is a problem. So the intention is to populate the asset information as per our data dictionary, have that linked to geographical models, and then automate the ability to hand that over into, say, Maximo as one of our asset management systems, so that we can map that data directly across. And yeah, that is a curly problem that we are working on. I think it's going to take us a little while to get it right, but we kind of know that as long as the data comes to us in a consistent structure, and once we figured out the mapping, we only need to figure that out once, and all the data is going to be there in the right state. We also there is a sort of BIM plugin for Maximo that uses Autodesk Forge, so that's kind of part of the puzzle. But I kind of see I like to think that getting to a state where an IFC export with all our attributes against it is what we'll pull out of Revizto, and then that will magically find its way into the asset management. It's easy to say, yeah.
It's nice to have. There's a couple more questions. One came from Hamish Barber saying, can you film a fly through to show a train driver from their perspective what the area will look like into the future? I think it would be useful for engagement with the signal siting committee.
Yes, the answer, Hamish. So yeah, there's a video capability in the tool, and you can also just run through those lines within Revizto. So yes.
And the height that you can set, so you go to first person's perspective in Revizto. And when we first started using it, the camera height was only a couple of meters, I think. So if you're taller than that, crouch. But I've got to say, kudos to the Revizto team. We did reach out and say, actually, we want to pretend like we're standing inside a train, and they're a bit higher than that. And so that maximum height you could set your eye level was set at a level that allows us to simulate a driver's point of view.
Yeah, that was probably one of the first things we asked Revizto to update. That was when we only had a couple of licenses, and that was updated pretty reasonably quickly. So that was cool.
Awesome. Question from Barry Williams. How are the individual models updated in Revizto? Are they updated by each individual model owner direct to Revizto, or are they federated into another software first, such as Navisworks, and pushed to Revizto from there?
It's a bit of a combination, but largely I'd say things go into Navisworks and federated at present, and then go into Revizto. But yeah, so for us, everything needs to go into our CDE before it goes into Revizto, following ISO 19650. But that doesn't mean to say we don't want to be efficient where we can. So there is lots of options where we've got direct plugins, and we look to utilize that because we want to just be efficient about how we transfer information. It's just for us making sure it's in the right places first, and it's had all the right ticks and approvals. Yeah, so it's a bit of a combination at the moment.
I think there's a point in the future where it's a bit more direct. So just upload the native. We upload, we use NWC, say, out of necessity, or we did previously. If we can just go direct, we'll just go direct. There's no point in federating it to federate it. But we also, I guess, have that challenge of that's a workflow that a lot of the supply chain are used to doing. They're used to doing that federation themselves and then supplying it to us.
So. Question from Alan Tier. He's asking, he's from Grimshaw. He's asking, great to see KiwiRail leading the way with ISO 19650 implementation as clients. Do you control the permissions on who can close issues? in Revizto? And also, is Revizto the dashboard you use for progress reports?
So the first part of that question I'll answer, and I'll let Andy talk to the dashboarding. So what we do is we let the supply chain solve the issues, but then we give the closing of the issues to our project managers or program managers as the best place to do that. So don't want to inhibit people going through and doing good stuff and solving issues, but yeah, we do have that actual closed function just in our what's the right word, options people have under their different access levels. So,
and that's in the new edition of our guidance doc. So it does explain the different user profiles we have and what you can and can't do. And on the dashboarding, yeah, look, we do see Revizto for us as being a pretty powerful dashboarding tool. Yes, the project teams are kind of free to use it on the project themselves to set up whatever they want. But because we provide the seats and we host all of the environments across our portfolio, it gives us the opportunity to do that cross-project dashboarding. So we've got take safety and design. The requirement is you use the safety and design tag for any safety and design safety and design stamp, and that has a SID tag attached to it. So what that lets us do is go back into that cross-project dashboarding and look across every project and say how many low, medium, high critical risk, safety and design risks have we got currently across the portfolio, and how many open and how many are closed. And yeah, we're still pretty early on in using that functionality. So I haven't got a beautiful shining example really other than the safety and design one. But I think that's something that we kind of see the power of us hosting the environments is we can get those insights. And I wouldn't say, I'd probably be inclined to say rather than reporting, we're looking at insights. So we have a reporting structure in terms of how we report on where projects are and what's happening. Revizto just lets us have a little insight and to compare that against. So yeah, it's getting that data directly and telling you, hey, if the design's listed as being complete, how is it Revizto shows this all these open issues or very few model elements sitting in there or very little attribution populated. So yeah, it's kind of how we look at the dashboarding piece. Oh yes, there we have it. It was going to happen at some point, but you're on mute, Charbel.
Sorry, just a few more, and sorry about this. It's just too many questions. Everyone is interested in the topic, and a question from Jonathan Navarrete. Do you integrate Revizto with any electronic document management system currently?
Good question.
Thanks, Jonathan. The answer is no, but our CDE is a combination of a few things, but does include SharePoint. So hint, hint, Revizto really keen for SharePoint and Revizto to talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, as we're definitely looking into keep developing APIs with those different tools that you guys are using. I could say whether it's SharePoint or any other, there are a bunch of tools that hopefully we'll be looking at integrating within in the near future. There's a question from Vincent Rook. He's asking what is the area limitation to upload the models in Revizto?
I don't
the
know
area limitation.
I don't know if that. So that project I showed up, Werribee Park, that is along the main southern line.
Yeah.
In Auckland, there is the majority of the project is in a few kilometers, well, more than a few kilometers, but there is a part of the project that's all the way down at the port, and we've got that set up as a viewpoint with the point clouds and design models there, and we don't have any issues.
Yeah, I could
with
also
the
say
distance.
the same. Yeah, we've got clients using Revizto on a 70-kilometer road, and we didn't have any issues with the uploads at all. A question from Sam: is there an objective for all assets across the national network to end up included into Revizto, or is the use of Revizto focused on projects at this stage?
It's focused on projects at this stage that don't see it as a digital twin solution. And we definitely have a bunch of testing and learning to do before I think we're mature enough as an organization to really reap the benefits of going down the digital twin route. I think though, we see it as anytime you've got a complex interface or anything happening, you need to coordinate between programs. So we have Wellington Station's a really good example of, we have a station to redo our signaling through there. We had a project to redo signaling. We had a project to redo our overhead wires. There's some work being done in one of the yards. There's a new ferry terminal that interfaces with it. There's a mechanical facilities project that impacts it. So you've got all of these big projects happening in the same sort of area. And we use Revizto as well as the place where we take information from each of those projects and federate them into a view, so you can see across projects that, oh yeah, somebody else is working in that area, I'll need to talk to them. And so we use it in those kinds of situations. But I don't know that it would be appropriate. I think we would struggle to keep that scale of information up to date and live. So we see it as we deliver the project, we create the asset information model, so all of the geometry and attribution in Revizto. And then we take it out of there into the asset management systems, and we archive it as an executable file, so you can always go back and relook at it, interrogate it. But unless there's some wild digital twin integration happening on the horizon for Revizto, I'm sure Shabab can enlighten us too. Then
that's a long roadmap right now.
It's after SharePoint.
But definitely your ideas, we do have on the website as well, if like in section 4, it's called community on the help center page, where you can post all of the ideas, and we'll also compare them to the log that we currently maintain of client requests, and definitely looking at what everyone is asking for as a priority to develop. But I don't manage this process, so we'll try to get some more insights onto that roadmap and see what we can do in the very near future. I'll just answer. We're on time. We're 12 o'clock. I was planning to go up to 12 o'clock, so I'll just stop here with the questions, I think, and we'll take these questions and answer them separately after the webinar, and send the answers to the attendees or the people who attended today. Thanks a lot for Andy and Derek. And this was amazing, the presentation and your answers. I'm sure they were really beneficial to everyone who attended. And I can see already people are leaving us comments saying it's a great presentation and they loved it. So as always, you dazzle us with your amazing ideas. And so thanks for this. Thanks everyone who attended as well. We'll be sharing the webinar with all the attendees and people who registered, as I said before. And I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks very much, Shabab. Such a pleasure.
Thanks everyone who attended.
Yeah, thanks for showing up to hear us.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks Oksana for organizing this as well.
Yes, thank you, Oksana.
Take care, guys. We'll catch up very soon.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.